Hi guys, so welcome to my YouTube video. I make YouTube videos about my choking phobia and mostly about exposure therapy. So today I'm going to talk about thinking errors. This is based on a talk that Dr. Dawn Elise Snipes did on YouTube about thinking errors. And so I'll link the video that I'm going to basically be talking about in the description. So yeah, let's begin. Like I've been just a quick update if anyone cares. You know what? No one cares. No one cares. We can do that some other time. Let's begin. So, what I want to get accomplished in this talk is first what is defined thinking errors. Then explore the different types of thinking errors. Okay. Then explore the different types of thinking errors, like in terms of there's cognitive distortions and there's irrational thoughts. Um, I'm just giving you a bit outline of what I'm going to be talking about. Next thing is I want to talk about evaluate. Sorry, just a bit nervous. The next thing I want to talk about is to evaluate how thinking errors can play into our basic fears of rejection, isolation, the unknown, loss of control, failure. I know from my personal opinion, my personal experience, a lot of that I've experienced that, and I know a lot of people with anxiety have as well. And that's also what I want to do is identify ways, just to conclude, to increase awareness of thinking errors and to address thinking errors and to address basic fears, okay, that I think, we all have as human beings living. So first, why I care, how it impacts recovery. Well, Dr. Dawn talks about thinking errors or stinking thinking play a large part in keeping people miserable. Addiction, depression, anxiety, anger, and guilt often stem or are made worse by faulty thinking and, having these thinking errors, cognitive distortions, um, catastrophizing, all these things. Um, so we need to addressing these thought patterns will help you not make a mountain out of a molehill, focus on the things you can change, identify and eliminate thought patterns that keep you stuck. Alright, so everyone has thinking errors, no matter who you're going to meet, someone at one point in their life is going to have at least one thinking error, alright? And they kind of keep you stuck. They kind of keep you in this thinking way of looking at life, and it's in a way it doesn't help anyone who has anxiety and depression. And so, how do we get out of them? Well, first way we get out of them is first identify what they are. Then what we do is we try to you know uh, basically what's the word for it? Replace them with more balanced, kind of rational, evidence-based thoughts. So Dr. Dawn goes on to talk about, well, what are thinking errors? Well, cognitive distortions take a thought and manipulate it to fulfill your expectations of a situation, and they also manipulate it to conform to your current headspace. Uh, for example, negative begets negative. So if you're in a bad mood, you're gonna see all the negatives. You're gonna think about all the negative things happening that day. Like if you wake up and it's raining and there's a meeting you don't want to go to, um, you know, if you're feeling sad already, those are the things what you're gonna look at. Not, for example, the fact that you don't have to water your garden anymore, right? Oh yeah, it's a crappy meeting. At least have a job though, right? Balancing those irrational thoughts. So irrational thoughts are beliefs, thoughts that you may hold that are usually extreme. For example, the one she uses a lot is "I must have love and approval from everyone all the time." Like that's an all or nothing uh, thinking error. Um, so they're unrealistic. For example, if for example, she gave this example that with her clients, she says with the ones that hold the statement true that I must have love and approval from everyone all the time, she asked them, these people, like this person that uh, let's say you have like a role model, like someone you like a celebrity, and you believe that she believes that everyone must love her at all times. So you kind of like look up to her. So Dr. Dawn would say to her client who's having this thinking error that there's even celebrities, there's some people that don't like them. Like, not everyone is going to have this love and approval from everyone all the time. It's unrealistic. It's all or nothing. It's just everyone has critics, celebrities, everyone, people that people look up to. So it's normal to feel, that sometimes you're not going to feel that way. You need to address that. She goes on to talking about how to address that. We'll get into that. So let's see here. She talks about they create feelings of failure, inadequacy, and disempowerment, right? Feelings no one really wants to have when they're experiencing anxiety and depression. So the basic cognitive distortions there's about 8 of them. There's about 7 of them. 7 of them. The first one is personalizing. The second one is mind reading. The third one is all or nothing, which I already covered. The fourth one is catastrophizing. I'll talk about all these one in detail. The fifth one is overgeneralization. The sixth one is shoulds. And the seventh one is recency or availability heuristic. So the first one, personalizing, for example, taking things personal. Simple as that. For example, in someone who's living in a family of addicts, or someone who's addictive, who is an addict, they may think that the reason that person is using is because of them. They'll take it personal. That's not necessarily the case. Addiction, as we all know, stems from larger causes. Mind reading, great case of that is social anxiety. Obviously, you walk into a room and you think everyone's thinking about you. What I learned a lot in therapy is that a lot of people aren't even thinking about you. They're thinking about their own kind of thing. To go more into mind reading, though, it says here, if you have not told her, she might not know. It's not all about you. Exactly, right? If you haven't communicated your thoughts to someone, how would they really know? Well, they could be thinking about other things. For example, there's an example of going to a appointment for a doctor and you're signing into the receptionist and she gives you a cold smile while you write your name down or whatever. So you get this bad impression from her. How do you know? She could be tired. She could be thinking about something else. She could be, that could just be her, right? Her personality. You don't gotta take it to the negative all the time when people, when you have these kind of thoughts, right? Next one is all or nothing, which I already covered. Just to go over again, is for people who believe that I must have love and approval for myself. I must have love and approval from everyone all the time. That's unrealistic. It's not gonna happen. Okay. Even celebrities have critics. Catastrophizing is like basically you need to identify exceptions to the rule. Catastrophizing, for example, for me, a big one, catastrophizing was like choking phobia. I would believe that any sensation in my throat area, or my chest area, or my stomach area, or when I breathe, would be the indication of me choking to death and dying. And what I had to realize was not only doing exposure therapy, which is a big part of it, which I've done in my videos, and I continue to do, it's also to identify exceptions to that exceptions that contradict, right? That you think that contradict. For example, if you believe you're being betrayed, think of times when people who haven't betrayed you. Like for my example, if I think I'm choking, think of times when I've eaten and I haven't choking, right? Overgeneralization, which is, for example, if let's say an attractive woman tells an attractive man that I'm too fat, when she's really just really underweight, to be quite honest. And the guy's like, yeah, no, you're not. This idea that you need to be a certain kind of person, or you're a person simply because of one sort of feature in your life is not true. I mean, people judge people based on not just looks, and one's weight need not be determined really by social standards, as convincing as they may be. You need to balance it with also healthy alternatives to, like, if you're too skinny, eat a little bit. Find a doctor, get advice on how to maintain a healthy weight and all that. Don't just conform to whatever societal norms, hetero norms, any norms, you know what I mean? Moving on, shoulds, right? Shouldwould thinking, right? It leads to just shouldwould thinking. It's like, oh, you're too hard on yourself. Oh, I should have done this. Oh, I mustn't do this. You just become too hard on yourself with these rigid rules. Just don't, in your mental thinking, don't use the word should or would or even must or maybe. Now it's kind of hard, so just start with should. Stop thinking. Just stop saying should in your mind when you think, whatever, when you meditate or you focus on doing your time when you do your mental health, or whenever you feel that mental health is important to you. Sorry, I was just dropping my journal. Whenever you feel mental health is important to you, it'd be good for you to kind of do that. All right. So, and the last one is recency, availability, heuristic. Like we can't change the past. Okay. For example, people who just base people. I mean, let's say you were just recently robbed, so you're going to assume everyone who looked like the robber could rob you, or like males, for example, right? You can't change the past. You just need to kind of learn to move on. You can work on that. I mean, through therapy, not me personally. I'm not a classified therapist. I'm just learning, but and trying to help other people through my video. But yeah, okay. I hope we're getting through a lot here. Done. I mean, I think we're going at a good clip. Let's just keep going. So evaluate how thinking errors can play into our basic fears of rejection, isolation, the unknown, loss of control, and failure. That's what they kind of boil down to. So we got to kind of like be at peace with those ideas. If you can get at peace with those ideas, we can shift our thinking to more positive thinking. All right. So irrational beliefs, going more to them. If I make a mistake, it means that I am incompetent. Is that true all the time, or is that true sometimes? Right? And what does that mean about you as a person? Like, as a person, are you someone who needs to be right all the time, needs to be perfect all the time, needs to impress someone all the time? It's okay to be a little out of whack sometimes. That's alright. It doesn't make you incompetent. So when somebody disagrees with me, it is a personal attack. I know someone in my life who if someone disagrees with them, they consider it a personal attack. That's something that people need to just be aware of. That's an irrational belief, and it comes from stemming from who you are as a person. You didn't have a lot of disagreement in your family life, and therefore that kind of caused you not to want people to disagree with you and in your professional and adult life. Let's see. I must be liked by all people. As much as you would like to be liked by all people, it's just not going to happen. You got the must in there, the should. It's a red flag right there. Also, the fact that all people, like, it's all or nothing thinking. Everyone's going to have their critic. No one was liked by everybody. My true value depends on what others think of me, right? That should not be true. And I'm using that should there because that's rational. That makes sense. You can use should and must and would and maybe as long as they are rational. They make sense logically, right? There's no logical fallacies. They make sense. They operate and work in the real world. You can test them. So you can't, for example, I must be like real people. I can name many people who don't like me, right? Everyone has this. My true value depends on what others think of me. It's not true. It's just not true. It's blatantly not true. Your true value depends very most importantly about what you think of you, because you will be held down most importantly by what you say about yourself, not what other people say about you. They're going to say it. They're going to say it anyway. If I'm not in a relationship, I'm completely alone. Again, same theme. Success and failure are black and white. There's no gray. That's not true, though. There is gray. You gotta understand that. It's a whole shade, a whole spectrum of gray. Once you embrace that viewpoint, that mentality, your thinking will shift, and you'll realize that not everything is so stark and death and black and life and black and white. Nothing ever turns out the way you want it to. Well, look for exceptions. Right? For example, she gave the example, Dr. Dawn, of she would get her car washed and then it would rain almost every time. She looked for exceptions though, and lo and behold, obviously there were times when she got her car washed and it didn't rain. So, It's that all the time. If the outcome was not perfect, it was a complete failure. That's extreme thinking, you know, perfect, complete, right? We would like to think in our mind that's how the world works. It doesn't, though. There's mistakes, there's jagged edges, there's crookedness, crooked edges. That's just how the world is sometimes. We need to learn to embrace that the crookedness, the jaggedness, the grayness. If something bad happens, it is my fault. That's personalization. Well, things happen because things happen. For example, if you see some, she gave the example, oh, this train crashed in Siberia. It must be my fault. These two patients her patients were having this. I think a husband and wife, right? Saying the wife kind of feared, oh, if this Siberian train crash was my fault. No, really? Think about it. What does that have to do with you? It's personalization. It happened because unfortunately tragedies happen in the world. Right? We should be prepared to deal with them. Right? If they happen to our neighbors, we got to be able to help them and whatnot. Most importantly, you got to realize. I mean, that's important. From a psychological point of view, you also got to realize that when bad things happen, it's not your fault. The past always repeats itself. Not necessarily. If it was true then, it must be true now. For some things, yes. Others, you can play the odds, right? Just think about it all rationally. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Now she goes on to talk about the A, B, C, D, E, F kind of way of looking at thoughts. So A is the automatic thought. B is the belief. Sorry. A is the activating event. So this is a way of dealing with stress situations, breaking them down this A, B, C, D, E, F type of way. So A is the what happened, activating event. B is your beliefs, which for the most part are faulty. And C are the consequences, getting mad, whatever, breaking a window. And what you want to do is you want to get to D, which is dispute the irrational thought, which obviously is kind of misleading you to believe certain things that we just talked about. That we live in a perfect world and all these things, right? There isn't shades of gray when there are. So then what we got to go is after D, we got to go to E, evaluate the most productive outcome. If we can think to ourselves, what is this faulty belief? Is it a thinking error? More than likely it is. Then we can be like, how do we get out of it? And so that's the A, B, C, D, E, F. I don't see an F though. So I guess it's only A, B, C, D, E. Yeah, it's only the A, B, C, D, E. Right, guys? I'll link the video for more descriptions. This is just kind of like watch this before watching the video, or perhaps after if you have questions on it. And obviously, there's comment section in the video, so I'm just trying to raise awareness from the top. So between the A and C, obviously we talked about the automatic belief. Moving on. Triggers, coping skills. Just trying to see here. Yeah. So how do we deal with triggers in our life? We'll use coping skills. For example, distract. Don't react. Distract yourself with something that you're really interested in. Something funny. Or just want to learn about something random. Just go on the internet. Talk it through. Sometimes talking about it helps a lot. It really does. Just talk about it. Just talk about it to yourself, to somebody on YouTube, with someone who has like 15 subscribers. Seriously. You know what I mean? Like, just talk about it to someone, to anybody. It really does help. I am living proof of the fact that sometimes it does help. Just talk about your problems and what's happening. It relaxes you. Makes you feel good. Talk it through. Urge surf, notice how you are feeling. Kind of like, that's what urge surfing is. Notice how you are feeling. Kind of go from one thing to the other. Okay, I'm feeling this way or that way. Remind yourself it increases and decreases like a wave. It's kind of how these rational thoughts go. They come, they go, they come, and they go. We got to learn to lessen the waves. They're just little things. Not so they're so big and small. Changes to challenge thoughts. Alright, guys, you can do it. Don't romanticize the use. Alright, you can do it. You don't. Basically, you can do it. Challenge those thoughts. How? Through constructive self-talk. Pinpoint what you tell yourself about an urge that makes it harder to cope with. The urge. For example, use self-talk constructively to challenge that statement. The effective challenge will make you feel better. Less tense, anxious, panicky. As I just said, when you're having a thought, just write it down. What is this thought? How much do I believe in it? Is there a cognitive distortion happening? Let's look up what cognitive distortion could be happening. You're a regular human being and have a right to make mistakes. It's okay if you make a mistake once in a while. It's okay. It's okay. Don't be this perfect person. And I have OCPD. It's really hard to say this. It's okay. Just let it go sometimes. Don't have everything be perfect. Just be as it is. Make mistakes sometimes and learn from them. So if you're having a distressing thought, you want to write down the following things. What is the evidence? Am I assuming causation where none exists? Am I confusing thought or feeling with fact? Am I close enough to really know what's going on? Right? For example, like in a family situation, your second uncle's cousin twice removed is going through a divorce. Do you really know what they're going through? Am I thinking it all or nothing, none? Am I using extreme words that allow, am I using extreme words like always or never? Is the source of the information credible? For example, if it's coming all from your head, then it's not credible, right? Just as a red flag. If all the information you're basing in a situation on, or your life, or anything, this video you're learning about, if it's all coming from your head, it's not going to be credible. And for example, also another thing you want to think about when you're having a distressing thought, like for example, I'm choking, or I can't breathe, I'm having a panic attack, things of those nature, is am I confusing low with high probability? Am I focusing on irrelevant factors? Is this thinking getting me closer to what I want? What are the advantages, disadvantages to thinking this way, right? What differences will this make in a month, year? So really important to just highlight these thoughts, these questions that you want to get through, that you want to talk about. These are things you really want to talk about. These are things you really want to just be aware of and notice when you're having these anxiety moments. Other CBT intervention: recognize how thoughts can cause feelings, feelings can cause thoughts. Activity schedule: I've talked about that to increase positive emotion mastery. Just say you're going to do something, write down how anxious you feel before you're going to do it, and then how anxious you feel after. For example, going for a walk, going to work, driving to the store, going grocery shopping, right? Exposure and response prevention: I've talked about that numerously on my channel about not, for example, telling you, like, for example, not engaging in avoidance behavior, embracing, foods that you fear you're going to choke on, within reason, doing a graduated exposure and not running away from it, doing it every day on a regular basis, and just saying, no, I'm not going to run away and say, oh, no, I can't do this because I'm unworthy, because I'm gay, or because whatever I would think, like I'm gonna choke because I don't because I just am. I would just be there. It would just be true. It would never be challenged. That thought. And then other things that you could do in terms of interventions are recognize negative thinking and we'll focus on problem-solving skills. Right? Group activity. If you're in a group of people who have, are talking about mental health, one thing we could do is list thinking errors and discuss how these patterns protected you until now. For example, penalized you from being disappointed if you expected to fail or expected people to leave. Right? For a long period of time, these thinking errors may have helped you adapt, but once you grow up, like a lot of mental health problems are diagnosed in adulthood. That's when we kind of like we need to identify and challenge our thoughts more, because if we don't, what we just grew up on, we would just continue doing, and if we face stress, we may not be able to obviously do it correctly. So yeah, list them and discuss them. Identify thinking errors that can currently identify thinking errors that you can currently eliminate, and with a countering mantra. Like, for example, the thinking error, I need to be loved by everybody all the time, could be, you could say instead, I need to love myself all the time, and not everybody is capable of loving. It is about them, not me, right? Focus on yourself. Identify thinking errors that you still hold onto and why, then develop a plan to start addressing them. Alright, we all have thinking errors, and the ones that we do the most, we want to kind of stop doing so that we can, you know, be less anxious and depressed. Alright. Decisional balance. So, this decisional balance. The thought pattern was learned over a long period of time. It served a purpose and was more beneficial than the alternative. Changing your outlook means seeing how this thought pattern is destructive, and alternative thought patterns may now be more helpful. Example: in an addicted home, the in an addictive home, the mantra is don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. For a child from an addictive home, negative thinking helped you along with the primary caregiver and provided safety. As an adult, you no longer require that safety. Right? So if you grew up in an addictive home, you would have developed ways of thinking that in later life you don't need anymore. To protect you from trauma or whatnot. Like, for example, don't talk about it, don't trust anybody, don't feel, right? When you grow up, you got to realize you got to talk about things, you got to trust people, and you need to feel more. If the outcome was not perfect, it was a complete failure. No, it wasn't. You know that. First is trying is important. Secondly, at least you got some of it right. Powerful thinking. If it was true then, it must be true now. Perhaps, perhaps not. Evaluate how thinking errors can play into our basic fears. Sorry, I talked about this. So apply it now. I'm wrapping up here. Get into the application section. Identify 3 ways you could have used this information in the past week. What was the situation? What did you do? How effective was that for you, short-term, long-term? If you would have had this new information, what could you have done differently? How would you have changed the outcome? How can you start integrating this knowledge into your routine? I know me personally, a lot of this information I use on a daily basis. Like, how important is this information? Then, this thought in a month or in a year, you got to look at it from that perspective. Summing up, cognitive behavioral therapy is a technique that helps people understand how thoughts create feelings and vice versa. I hope you guys learned how to identify and address negative self-talk. Also, the issues and events. And also our issues and events form the past. Do not need to issues and events from the past do not need to really continue to negatively impact a person, right? Let sleeping dogs lie. Thinking errors are learned and can be unlearned. These thought patterns help to form and maintain a negative or vulnerable self-image. Okay, so I hope you guys learned a lot from this. I'll link in the description the speaker and the talk. And I hope you guys enjoy. If you have any questions, write them in the comments. Remember guys, enjoy. Remember guys, stay with it.